All right. So we're picking up I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj and digging in this morning with, of course, Maharaj's first statement this morning, a great one to jump into in the morning. I'm dead already. Which, it is very Christian. It's a very Christian idea, at least from me, from my perspective, growing up that way. Because Jesus always talked about dying to the self, dying to yourself, die before you die. And that ties in with when St. Paul says, it's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. It means the ego is dead. The ego is what we kill. The ego is our sense of identity and separateness. And when we let go of that, then the universe manifests its nature, which of course is Satchitananda through us clearly, without interference from the ego, which attaches to body and mind, and then usually, what would you say, misdirects our universal love into little channels of particularity. Some people get our love and some people don't. And the ego is the control nozzle. So Maharaj, we'll go up a sentence earlier just to break in here. So, which is, am I in the right place? The person is not reality.
I think you had left off a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I think we perhaps a question.
How does one go beyond
dead
consciousness?
already. Are you not afraid of death? I am dead already, he says. That's where I have.
That's okay. That's where I have also. All right. So the problem, I need to fix this because I usually put a little dot where I leave off, but I've done this class before, so there's several sets of dots from previous classes. So
did we do the one where he says, "Don't you have desires and fears anymore"? Did we did that? Did we finish it?
Well, it doesn't. It's funny because I also have I Am Dead already highlighted, but as I look through this, it's not.
Because I thought this was a previous question. Does this spontaneous come as a result of realization or by training? And it says both devotion to your goal makes you live a clean and orderly life. I don't remember us discussing that. Perhaps maybe I'm mistaken.
Yes, let me see here.
Not that one. I mean, I know.
Yeah,
I'm dead already, but there's a big paragraph right before that where Maharaj says, "My destiny was to be born as a man."
Yeah. I think you're right. I think we're just one question and answer.
Before that. Yeah, don't you have desires and fears anymore?
Yeah, my life is the common kind.
Right. So I'm going to go up though. To the question, when the questioner says awareness lasts, that kind of brings us into the thought process a little bit.
Can someone tell me what chapter it is? Sorry.
It's the questioner say it's just a few sentences before the I'm dead already, or a few paragraphs before. And it says awareness lasts. So the questioner is asking, so awareness is permanent? And Maharaj says awareness is not of time, which means it's not that awareness lasts. It's that there's no time bounding awareness. And so it's outside of time. So you can't use a term like lasts because it implies time. It implies limits. So awareness doesn't last. It is. Just like love. Love does not last. It is. Wisdom does not last. It is. Being does not last. It is. These are the parts of ourselves that are actually outside of time. They are in that absolute unchanging core to our being that carries our sense of I, regardless of what we're attached to. So awareness is not of time. Time exists in consciousness only. And consciousness is awareness that is reflecting off of objects, as we talked about earlier. So when you are in active mind, when you are thinking, analyzing, planning, musing, any of those things, you're living in change. You've identified yourself as being within the change and of the change. And when you're identified with change and in change, you are subject to time. You are subject to the passage of that time. So time exists in consciousness only. Beyond consciousness, where are time and space? Right? If you're in silent mind, where's time and space? Time and space require a series of thinking. They require a memory, and they require a projection. So in still mind, a lot of the things that we're familiar with are delusion, actually, disappear. They aren't real in and of themselves. So when we say that which changes is unreal, we mean just exactly that. It doesn't really exist. And as it exists, it does not exist. It does not exist. We do not see it as it is, though it exists. Its existence itself, because even the changing, Thakur says, when you get to the roof of the house after climbing the stairs to get up there, that you find out that they were all made of brick dust, just like the roof is. And so this changing world, though unreal, is only unreal in the way that we perceive it to be. It has a reality, and that reality is God. That reality is divine. We are seeing nothing but the beloved. But our ego has broken it into a myriad of pieces in order to make ourselves separate from it. So awareness is not of time. Time exists in consciousness only. Beyond consciousness, where are time and space? And questioner, within the field of your consciousness, there is your body also. Well, of course, but the idea my body as different from other bodies is not there. To me, it is a body, not my body. A mind, not my mind. The mind looks after the body all right. I need not interfere. What needs be done is being done in the normal and natural way. Now, this is a challenge for you. Can you see this in your life? Can you see that it's your mind that takes care of your body, that it's not you? You merely observe that process? Because your mind, as we've talked about before, is just the wheel of samsara. It's one thought following another thought, following another thought, following another thought, round and round and round and round it goes independently. And it's the mind that knows where the food is for the body. When the body says, hey, mind, I'm hungry. It's the mind that knows where the bed is. When the body says, oh, I'm tired, right? It's the mind that knows how to train itself and go get a job and to take care of things when they're necessary. But that all carries on. That's not you. You are not that doer. You are merely an observing passenger in that experience. So there's the body also, yes, but the idea of my body isn't there. So it's not, there's no me and mine. Remember, we talk about that all the time. The way to having this kind of still mind is to eliminate the ideas of me and mine from the mind, that will calm it, and that will give you the experience outside time. That frees you of your karma, which the mind holds, time, space, causation, which the mind holds. All of these things drop away because they're no longer relevant without the series of thinking and changing going on. What needs to be done is being done in the normal and natural way. You may not be quite conscious of your physiological functions, but when it comes to thoughts and feelings, desires and fears, you become acutely self-conscious. To me, these two are largely unconscious. I find myself talking to people or doing things quite correctly and appropriately without being very much conscious of them. It looks as if I live my physical waking life automatically, reacting spontaneously and accurately. So here's a description of enlightenment, that he's not even always aware of what the body's doing. He can be in a conversation and he himself is not necessarily there, but it's carrying on just fine. You know, the body and mind are what engage in conversation. not you. And then he just occasionally becomes aware and finds himself speaking or carrying on a conversation or finds himself teaching. But that it doesn't require an idea of him as separate for that to happen, that this is the natural, normal function of the universe to carry on as it carries on. Because the one doer, the I don't even know if you can say doership, because I'm not sure anything's happening. You know, if the dream were real, then we would say God is the doer. But you know, if you're dreaming, sure, the dreamer is doing the dreaming, but what's actually being done? You know, nothing is actually happening. And so I think if we zoom out our awareness wide enough and drop our ideas of particulars, we'll probably find that it's unchanging, that nothing is actually done or moved or changed in that sense. It's an illusion of ignorance, an illusion of partial seeing that makes it seem that way. So the questioner says, does this spontaneous response come as a result of realization, or does it come from training? It's an interesting question. That may, you know, if it comes by realization, there's no doing to it. But if it comes by training, then it's a cause with an effect, or it's an effect with a cause. So let's see what he says. Well, both. Okay, surprise me. Both. Devotion to your goal makes you live a clean and orderly life, given to search for truth and to helping people. And realization makes noble virtue easy and spontaneous by removing for good the obstacles in the shape of desires and fears and wrong ideas. So both. So in a sense, our devotion to our goal, our love of the divine, which is why Thakur says that it has to be huge, you know, that we have to be crazy for God, for this knowledge, that we have to want it desperately and deeply. Why? Because that's what makes you clean up your life, which aids in the silencing of the mind. You're given to a search for truth, you know, so you're exposing yourself to these pointers, these, you know, the truth itself, you know, can't really be named. It can be pointed at because it's it can manifest. It manifests differently. So your devotion to the goal is what makes you live a clean and orderly life. You're given to the search for truth and to helping people, which is the destroyer of ego. You know, if you're doing it as worship, helping other people, keeping your mind on others, that's breaking the idea of me and mine. And so it's expanding the sense of self. And realization makes noble virtue easy and spontaneous. So it no longer becomes a mental process. It no longer becomes I'm going to go help that person. It makes it easy because it connects you to your source, and your source is a kind and noble person. Your source is a truthful, contented, loving, kind, and wise person. That's what you are. There is no way around it, and I'm afraid the bad news is all of us are doomed to be perfect at some point. There's nothing that you can do. So surrender now and stop fighting. Stop fighting. So both devotion to the goal makes you live a clean and orderly life, given to search for truth and to helping people, and realization makes noble virtue easy and spontaneous by removing for good. Now, this is the great thing about realization, is it's for good. You don't have to worry about maintaining it. That's how we know that it's not a composition. It's not an attainment. Attainments and compositions require constant maintenance. But for realization, you can't unsee or unknow what becomes obvious to you in realization. By removing for good the obstacles in the shape of desires, fears, and wrong ideas. Don't you have desires and fears anymore? Maharaj, my destiny was to be born a simple man, a commoner, a humble tradesman, with little of formal education. My life was the common kind, with common desires and fears. When, through my faith in my teacher and obedience to his words, I realized my true being, I left behind my human nature to look after itself until its destiny is exhausted. Occasionally, an old reaction, emotional or mental, happens in the mind, but it is at once noticed and discarded. After all, as long as one is burdened with a person, one is exposed to its idiosyncrasies and its habits. You see how he's even talking about himself in third party there? When one is exposed to a person, or is one or burdened with a person, one is exposed to its idiosyncrasies and habits. So you see, he sees himself as a third party to himself, that he truly is not identified. He does not think that the body mind is his. And when he's burdened with personhood, you know, when he's caught in thinking, it's like then you're caught in your idiosyncrasies and your habits. It's a burden, it's a weight on you. And that's why we call realization freedom, because we come to realize what a burden this body is. You know, that's one of those wonderful the times when I was with Moksha Prana in 99, and she gave that experience that I've shared before. But the thing that was the thing that really stands out in my memory about that time is that part that I share quite regularly, where the communications that we were having were complete. They were complete, and you know, there was no. She didn't. All of the words that she was saying to me came with all of their imagery and thought process that she had in her mind. So like the understanding was provided with the words. I didn't have to take the words and put my own meanings on them and try and interpolate what she was saying. I was getting her original idea, her original thought in that package. And it was such a wonderful experience of effortless knowing and effortless communication that ever since then, just like right now, it's always very easy for me to remember how burdened communication is, how clunky it is. You know, that as I sit here and all I can give you is sounds. You know, I can move my tongue and my larynx and my teeth and my lips, and that's all I can give you. I'm trying to transmit, you know, well, what am I trying to transmit? Nothing. But there's a great deal of effort and a great deal of loss and a great deal of clumsiness to the whole process. And this is how you're going to feel about your body and your mind at some point. You know, it's like this rubbery, fleshy limit, you know, that just, you have to carry it everywhere you go. You can't ever like, I'm going to put my body here and go blow with the wind for a while. I'll be back. You know, we have to carry this clumpy, tight fitting, you know, weird thing everywhere. We're just constantly dragging it around. And it's our karma. It's the manifestation of our karma and our desire. And so here we have to carry this living tangle of our karma and desires around us everywhere. We can't just be somewhere. We have to go there because we have to carry that thing. So let me take care of something here real quick. All right.
But Swami,
Yes.
if you talk, I feel you laugh.
Ah, that's because you're in there.
And I think my body is a miracle.
It is.
Huh?
It
It
is.
is not something stupid. I'm very glad that this body is working so beautiful. And
Is it?
of course, it's just for a while, and then because I am not the body. But I have respect of it.
Oh yes.
Very thankful for it.
Okay.
as long as it endures, eh? So
That's a healthy way to be in it. Here we are. It is positive, and it is a miracle, you know. So is the rock that we tripped over. You know, that was also a miracle. So was our falling down on our face. That was also a miracle. But so yes, it's very true that the body is it is amazing, and it is a miracle, and it is a gift of the divine. If it's used properly and held in the right light, it gives great joy and great gifts. It manifests beautiful things. But by nature, it's an impurity. You know, by nature, we're stuck in it because of attachments.
Yeah.
And, so that's the part that makes it difficult, is that we're stuck in it because we're attached to it for its identity, for our identity. And that causes a great deal of suffering, which is also a miracle. and also a wonder, you know. So most definitely, you're absolutely right. Everything, when seen in the proper light, when seen from the perspective of the divine, from realization, everything is perfect. Everything is exactly as it should be. And there is no mistake, no wrong, no ugliness in it. You're absolutely right. But to experience that all the time is going to require realization. You know, because there will come times when the body seems like a horrible burden. You know, when it gets ill, or when something breaks, or you know, when the moods are pushing around, or whatever is happening. There are times, and as it gets older, it becomes more of a limitation. You know, we can think about running outside and riding our bicycle around the lake, but we can't lift our leg up onto the bicycle anymore. That too is a miracle. But you know, it's better to transcend. If you know that you're not the body, and you realize you can't lift your leg up and over onto the bicycle, if you know you're not the body, that becomes a funny thing. That becomes an enjoyable thing, actually, kind of a chuckle, like, oh, good God, you know. But if you're attached to the body, that's a terrible thing. It's like, oh my God, I'm getting old. Look, my body is failing. I'm going to die. And oh, all my fun and all my life and everything is going away. This is horrible. Oh my God, help me. Which would be the best part of that sentence. Oh my God, help me. But yes, you see, so you're right. While you're in it, it's meant to be enjoyed. But we have to enjoy it in the right way so we don't get trapped in it. That's our problem. So that when it does begin to decay, we see the decay, and we have our discernment has shown us that it's not who we are. So it's not such a bother. It just becomes like, yeah, that's my old jalopy. that's my old car. You know, this is my old body. Here we are. It doesn't, nothing like it used to be, you know, but it's closer to realization than it was before. And so what a marvelous journey to take. So yes, you're right. Absolutely. It's always a beautiful and always a positive thing when seen from the proper perspective. And all we have to do is remember that perspective, even when we can't see that perspective. So even when the body becomes an unbearable limitation, we must know our freedom inside. We must find our freedom in our being, and not through the body. Yes. So don't you have desires and fears anymore? And he basically just says, you know, this whole birth was just to be a common man with common desires. And occasionally an old reaction or an emotion or a mental state will happen in the mind, but it's at once noticed. Why? Because that's how he got where he's going, by being a constant discerner, constantly aware of how his inner world works, how the mind works, how it interacts with body, how the senses work, how the memory works, you know, how desires are formed, how delusion slips in. All of these things become known to the person who's doing the work, you know. And so, yes, even when you realize some of these old brain farts will still happen, but you'll see them and you'll recognize them as brain farts. and you'll chuckle and shrug your shoulders and keep moving. Are you not afraid of death? Questioner. I'm dead already. Oh no, Maharaj, I'm dead already. Right? The ego's gone. The attachment to body mind is gone. So there is nothing that he is living for. Right? There's no purpose to his life anymore. He is. And that isness produces beauty. That isness produces wisdom. That isness produces, manifests love. You know. So he says, I'm dead already. This ego that limited all of those things, that held me down, that held me hostage to my karma, it's gone. So in what sense are you dead already? The questioner asks. I am double dead. Not only am I dead to my body, but I'm dead to my mind as well. Right? So what does it mean to be dead to the body? That means the body can be asking for all kinds of things, and you're oblivious to it. Not your concern. That's the concern of mind. Mind will take care of the body as it needs to. You know, so you don't suffer the wants and needs and hungers and thirsts of the body, and you're not subject to the moods and states and conjurations of mind either. You have found a third place, perhaps we could talk about it that way, a third place that's transcendent, that hangs just above them all, in a place of bliss and contentment, in a place of purity and calmness, in a place that's just manifesting love in the same way your body manifests heat, and quite as naturally as well. Well, you don't look dead at all. That's what you say. You seem to know my state better than I do. He's pointing at a problem that all of us have, right? We only know of our own existence, but we project it on everybody, right? We project it on everyone. We think that because I'm this way inside, you're this way inside. So if you give me a look and I've given someone that look, I assume you're giving that look for the same reason I did. And that's how a lot of communication happens, through assumption. Right? Well, actually, vast majority of communication is assumption at this point. And fortunately, the experience of humanity is close enough that assumed communication actually sort of works in a pretty good way, right? But it has nothing to do with you. You're free in there. So he apologizes, questioner, sorry, but I just do not understand. You say you are bodiless and mindless, while I see you very much alive and articulate. You see, and why is he doing that? You see, this is exactly what Maharaj was talking about. You seem to know my state much, much better than I do. It's because, you see, when we see a body talking and a mind functioning, we assume that's the person. Right? Ramakrishna died very early on in his ministry. That first time he had his realization in the temple of Kali there, Ramakrishna ceased to be Ramakrishna. He died. His ego was gone. He had that unitive experience. He was one with the beloved. And he never returned. But all of us continued to call him Ramakrishna all the way, well beyond his end. We're still calling him Ramakrishna. And when we say Ramakrishna, we're still thinking of a body and a picture, right? That Ramakrishna that's a body and a picture is dead. He was dead even while the body was still moving. It was no longer a personality with desires and fears and knowledge that was talking and sharing. It was the divine Lord. It was God sitting in a room in Dakshineshwar, freely speaking with his beloved devotees. This thing that we called Ramakrishna was an incidental. It was a piece of silverware on the table that the Lord was using to serve us with. But it wasn't a thing in and of itself anymore. And so this man is making the same mistake. There is no Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj there. there's a functioning body mind there, right? And that which is knowing that is the same thing in him that doesn't know it, that he hasn't allowed to know it, I guess, at that point. So he's saying, I see you very much alive and articulate, so I'm assuming you're there. How can you say that you're dead? You see, because he has no notion of who he is. So how can the body mind be alive if be alive if the person is saying they're dead? Right? He hasn't have that working notion of the ego yet, and what the death of the ego is: the death of desire, the death of hunger, the death of thirst, the death of calculation and need, the death of manipulating the universe. All those things are dead. They are no more.
But Maharaj, I have a question. So but that may be true for Sri Ramakrishna, but isn't that true for all of us, whether we have an ego or not? We are still the God in this mind, body, and ego.
Yes.
You know,
the difference,
there is, yeah.
It's true. The difference is we suffer.
Hmm.
That's the difference. You see, because we are, in fact, that's what you say is so true. It hurts actually a little bit, because we are realized that unchanging absolute portion that is ourself is within us, but it lives there unnoticed, unrecognized, unidentified with, as we are out in the garden of the mind, playing in the changing. And so, yes, we are. There's not a difference in any of the particular makeup of a Thakur or a me or a you. We are all, that embodied self. The difference is twofold. One, in power. Thakur didn't have to do anything, and he's changing the world. He didn't have to. He didn't have to leave Dakshineshwar even, and he's changing the world. He was just living his life, and here we are talking about him hundreds of years later. Chances are when I go, or when any of us goes, they'll put a bow on the box, put it in the burner, and remember us for a couple of weeks, and things are off and running again. That's the nature of things. And but he's free here. He knows that he's not the body, and he knows that he's not the mind, and he's not attached or concerned with what they're doing. They carry on. They've been purified by his journey, I would imagine. And if they weren't purified by the journey, they're definitely purified by the realization, by the seeing.
But this journey, but as a part of this journey, if we accept that this is the Lord functioning the way I do, whether good or bad, this is the journey that and you accept it instead of resisting resisting and saying, oh, I need to get from A to B, and you accept that this is the Lord in this form, in this way, not perfect. That's in showing as this not perfect me. No, I mean.
Well, that's the part. That's the missing component there. Is that it is a perfect me.
No, I know, but it's till such time that we get it, that we
right.
realize that as a journey. If you accept the world as it is, accept me as it is, accept people with their faults, me with my faults, that is the manifestation that the Lord is projecting as of now, and he does nothing wrong, right? There's nothing wrong. So if you accept that there is nothing wrong, even with the wrongs, I don't know, maybe I'm I'm not thinking clearly, but
no, you're thinking. There's a couple of things in there we can kind of poke at a little bit. One is that you can accept that a plane flies, and you can accept that it's done in the cockpit, and you can accept and understand all the equipment in there is necessary for that function. But no matter how much you accept, you can't fly the plane. right? And so in our sense, yes, the first stage is to hear the truth. The next stage is to not resist the truth. The next stage is to accept the truth, to embrace the truth. And then the final step is to know, to grok, to realize the truth, which means that you can fly the plane. It's like you have a full understanding and it's all naturally obvious to you. You don't have to be trained on how to fly the plane. You realize, this is all metaphor here. A realized person goes and sits in the cockpit and just knows spontaneously exactly what to do. You know, just does it as naturally as can be. And you know, and when the plane crashes, he's still just naturally flipping his switches and doing his things. He doesn't have a dog in the race, a horse in the. It doesn't have a horse in the race. And that's, if we can live that way, if we can live in this world knowing, not accepting that, yes, God is everywhere present, always perfect, God is the doer, we can accept that, but we'll still struggle and we'll still hurt and we'll still suffer on occasions. But to know that, to know it in the sense that you're watching it and aware that it is God moving. You see God moving. You don't see people moving and then accept that it's God.
Right.
You see God alone. You see God moving, and in knowing that absolute detachment of others, you in yourself have that as well. So you're just one of the many you're watching. You're not watching you. You don't have any more special feeling toward this body mind than you do toward any body mind, because you realize that you've probably been most of them at some point or another in the game, and shared enough of their experiences to know what they went through in the game, but you still don't have any particular attachment. So it's not important what this body's up to or this mind is up to any more than any others.
Thank you.
So he says, a tremendously complex work is going on all the time in your brain and body. Are you conscious of it? Not at all. Yet for an outsider, all seems to be going on intelligently and purposefully. Why not admit that one's entire personal life may sink largely below the threshold of consciousness and yet proceed sanely and smoothly? Right? So he's interpolating. He's saying, look, you think you're the doer, right? And I'm going to go back to my simple example. Look, I'm doing this. But how can I claim to be the doer of this when I have no idea how it's done? You know, I'm only thinking, move my finger. But the thousands of processes, literally thousands, maybe more than thousands, maybe tens of thousands of processes that are actually happening in my body in the right sequence, in the right way to move my finger, I'm utterly unaware of them. You know, don't have any idea how it's done. And yet I have the gall to call myself the doer. And so he's saying, look at your life and understand how much, like today I say, oh, you know, last night I said, oh, I'm going to get up in the morning at 6:30. You know, you're the doer. That should be no problem at all. But the fact is, who's going to keep you from dying in your sleep? Who's going to keep you from getting up and tripping over the sheets and breaking an ankle in the morning? You know, who's going to prevent the power from going out and shutting your alarm clock down? You know, all these, and you can go on and on and on. It's just an exercise and nonsense to do it. But the point of it is the same, right? The point of it is that, oh, good Lord, I'm getting like 900 notifications from Greg's phone. He obviously just drove into the cell phone district, and now he's been gone for 3 days camping in the mountains, and now I'm just getting ding, 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 ding. Sorry about that. So I'm all confused. So understand that this is very clearly an illusion, that you are the doer, that you're in charge, that you have a body and a mind that are yours. Is very much an illusion. And the idea of you doing something with that body is equally an illusion, because all we do is simplify down to the point where we can accept ourselves as the doer. As long as it's okay for me to know nothing, then I'm the doer. I'm the one doing it. But when you think about it, it falls apart. And to be realized is to having witnessed that falling apart. That's realization. When you realize that your current perspective of the way the world works absolutely is untrue, that you can't rectify it with anything that you're observing in your discernment. You can't maintain your old worldview after you start paying attention. That gives you two choices. Either keep not paying attention, which would be that fish in the mud in the net, like, oh my God, I don't know, this is too big. I can't do this. So I'm just going to go back and read my book. Or it's accepting it and having your ears blown off. It's accepting it and realizing that life is an utterly different experience than what you've ever imagined. That it's wow. it's just wow. All right. So most of our life is just going on without a driver, or with a driver that we don't yet know. And the questioner says, well, is that normal? Is it normal to be so detached and not even fully aware of yourself, what you're doing at the moment, because you're not attached to the body mind at all? Maharaj, always taking it deeper. What is normal? Is your life obsessed by desires and fears, full of strife and struggle, meaningless and joyless, normal? To be acutely conscious of your body ID, is it normal? To be torn by feelings, tortured by thoughts, is it normal? A healthy body, a healthy mind live largely unperceived by their owner. Only occasionally, through pain or suffering, they call for attention and insight. Why not extend the same to the entire personal life? One can function rightly, responding well and fully to whatever happens, without having to bring it into the focus of awareness. When self-control becomes second nature, awareness shifts its focus to deeper levels of existence and action. That's a cool thing right there. I'd like to just sit and think about that for a minute. When spiritual life stops being about all of the stuff, the self-control, the studying, the meditating, the being nice, the forgiving, all of those things that we're doing, all the, in a fun way, call them the gnats of spiritual life. But think of when the mind is free from that, when being loving, when being unselfish is natural to you and no longer taking thought and taking effort on your part, then the mind becomes aware of the subtle things. That's when the mind goes into the cave, and touches that timelessness, experiences that wonderful freedom that's inherent in us, that is what we are. So when the self-control becomes second nature, awareness shifts its focus to the deeper levels of existence and action, and life looks completely different. Just the slightest adjustment in this transcendence, and everything is different. Everything is different. There is no familiarity with the old habits. There's now familiarity with what you've always been. And that familiarity is infinitely deep. That then you really have come home. Finally you get a blanket that's long enough for your bed. So the questioner says, well, if it's all just happening automatically like that, if things are just going on, he says, don't you become just a robot?
Swamiji?
Yes.
So what you are saying is we should strive so that the spiritual life becomes a reflex.
Well, yes. The simple answer is yes. There's a few things I would want to say, is that it is always that way. The effort is in maintaining our illusion. You see, we spend a lot of time nurturing our illusions, deciding what we want, deciding what we like, deciding who we like, deciding where we want to be, what should we do, what should I wear. You know, all of our effort is in a constantly primping and propping up our ego. You know, we get up, we comb our hair, we put on our makeup, we take our shower, you know, we put on our clothes, the ones that we like, the ones we think we look good in. You know, we do what we can with our face, you know, in the mirror, we shave it, we wash it, you know, put a couple of layers of cement on there, whatever we have to do. And we carry on our day because we're nurturing our illusion. And that takes a great deal of effort. So what we're actually trying to do is relax out of your delusion, right? We're trying to undo. We're trying to see things as they are and not as we've become convinced that they are. So it's really a relaxation. It is natural to you to be loving. That's why you feel so good when you do it. It's natural to you to be kind. That's why it feels great to be kind. It's unnatural for you to be selfish. And that's why you feel that tinge or that tightness or that intenseness. You see, if we were just paying attention, we would let go of those things. And we would not put efforts into proving them true to us, to ourselves, which frankly is what we're doing. We spend as much time during the day proving ourselves to be a body, proving ourselves to be the mind. And then we take 1 or 2 hours to try and think about it differently. You see, but if the natural self is free, that's why I say we're not trying to accomplish something. We're not trying to do something. This is what you are. Stop fighting it. Stop nurturing wrong ideas. You know, stop chasing your desires. That's the whole point of it. Stop, because they're unreal. They are the cause of your darkness. They are the cause of your lack of joy in life. So, yes, what you're saying is true. It does become habit. It does become normal. But the fact is, it already is. The thing that's actually taking the work and actually taking the effort is maintaining your desires and maintaining your body and maintaining your mind and your relationship with them. That's actually the problem, right? And so, but in time, it does work out. So the questioners asked them, well, that just sounds so robotic. If the body's just carrying on like the mind tells it, isn't that just being a robot? And Maharaj says, well, what harm is there in making automatic what is habitual and repetitive? What's the problem with admitting that the body mind are just robots? Why are you trying to find anything of value in them? Why do they have to be unique or special to you? It is automatic anyhow. It's the way it is. You're not the doer. You don't have free choice, free will. It's just carrying on. Allow it to carry on. Your joy is not in the uniqueness of the experience. Your joy is in your nature. Put it there. It is automatic anyhow. But when it is also chaotic, it causes pain and suffering and calls for attention. The entire purpose of a clean and well-ordered life is to liberate man from the thraldom of chaos and the burden of sorrow. Right? The whole point of life is to liberate, to be free from what is automatic, what is inconsequential. You know, let the mind and the body go on. They'll carry on just fine. You be immortal, be free, be unencumbered, be unentangled. Questioner, well, you seem to be in favor of a computerized life. But I bet he's not the one holding the cell phone all day. Maharaj, what is wrong with a life which is free from problems? Personality is merely a reflection of the real. Why should not the reflection be true to the original as a matter of course, automatically? Need the person have any designs of its own? The life of which it is an expression will guide it. Once you realize that the person is merely a shadow of the reality, but not reality itself, you cease to fret and worry. You agree to be guided from within, and life becomes a journey into the unknown. Right? And that's not to say, you see, it's kind of the same dilemma. Our journey right now is a journey into the unknown, but we assume we know everything, right? We assume we know all that we need to know to carry on just fine. Therein lies the trouble. When we come to realize that we don't know anything, we've picked up a handful of facts and we've built a whole world out of it. Once we come to know that and accept that and realize that that doesn't make any difference because it's still whole, it's still unique, it's still beautiful, it's still loving, it's still kind, it's still meaningful. But it's just not meaningful because we're doing things. It's meaningful because we are, because we is. And that is a constant expression of God, perfection, the highest ideal, absolute freedom, absolute love. So this thing here, once you realize that the person is merely a shadow of the reality, that this body mind, right now, our experience of the world is that this is real, this is big, this is obvious, it's right here, it's all of our attention. And our inner world, it's there when we think about it, it's there when we remember it. But when we approach realization, that flips. The inner world becomes bigger than the outer world. There's several places where Ramakrishna talks about that, where like when the time when that untouchable man entered his room, and what did he see? He saw God in him first, and falls down and prostrates before this untouchable. Ramakrishna prostrates, does an Ashtanga Pranam to an untouchable man. And, and the man says, what are you doing? What kind of karma have you just heaped on my head, this burning coals? And Ramakrishna was like, nah, it's not like that. He says, you see, when you walked in, I saw the divine. It wasn't for a few moments before I saw you. You see, this is what spiritual maturity brings to us. We start seeing the real first instead of the covering, right? Right now, we see the covering first because we identify with it. But when we know the nature of our inner world, we'll see the inner world first, and it will be bigger than the external world. It'll be more powerful than the external world, and it will be infinitely more real. There's no interpretation going on in the real. There is an instant of spontaneous knowledge, a constant knowing. All right. 13, the supreme, the mind, and the body. Questioner, from what you told us, it appears that you are not quite conscious of your surroundings. To us, you seem extremely alert and active. We cannot possibly believe that you are in a kind of hypnotic state, which leaves no memory behind. On the contrary, your memory seems excellent. How are we to understand your statement that the world and all that it includes does not exist as far as you are concerned? Maharaj, it's all a matter of focus. Your mind is focused in the world. Mine is focused in reality. It is like the moon in daylight. When the sun shines, the moon is hardly visible. Or watch how you take your food. As long as it is in your mouth, you are conscious of it. Once swallowed, it does not concern you any longer. It would be troublesome to have it constantly in mind until it's eliminated. The mind should be normally in abeyance. Incessant activity is a morbid state. The universe works by itself. That I know. What else do I need to know? All right. So it's a matter of focus. Matter of your awareness. That's why we're always talking about become aware of the presence. That's the inner world. Become aware of the presence. Become aware of awareness. Become aware of the life that's in you. Feel the isness. Feel what it means to exist. Ponder that. Ponder existence. So it's a matter of focus, where you're placing your mind. If you place your mind on the future, then that brings you some anxiety and unsureness and some stress. Put your mind in the past, it'll bring some regrets, some melancholies, maybe some sorrows. But place your mind here in the present, and it's undefined. It's open, it's infinite in its potential. It's not calcified, it's not locked, it's free. So don't focus your mind in the world, all right? Be aware of it. It's like the moon in daylight, he says. When the sun shines, the moon is hardly visible. Or watch how you take your food. Again, when it's in your mouth, you're paying attention. After it passes the taste buds, who cares what it was? It's done. It's gone. So he says it would be trouble if it wasn't like that. So the mind should be normally in abeyance. This is where we heard this from Eckhart Tolle as well. The mind should be silent unless you need it. Unless you have a reason to engage it, it should be silent. It should be still. It's like a hammer. It should be sitting on the shelf until you pick it up and use it. Right? When you're not using it, you put it back on the shelf. It's done. So the mind is like that. This addiction to thought, as Eckhart Tolle talks about it, this addiction to thought is what does he say here? I love his word. A morbid state. The fact that you can't stop thinking is morbid. You've got a terrible control problem. The fact that your mind is constantly thinking and constantly making noise means that you have not trained that toddler at all. And if you invite company over, it's going to be a problem. So this is that thing. The mind, practice silencing the mind. And thinking about things, this, again, I'm a broken record. I keep repeating these same things, but this one in particular is new and wonderful. The fact that that silent mind gives you so much. The things within that unfold when the mind is silent. What a treasure. I can't imagine that it took me 58 years to even begin to touch such a freedom, such a wonderful thing, to know that anyway, that all of those things are there. So it's a matter of focus. It's a matter of becoming aware of your inner world, your inner life. It's a matter of silencing the mind and seeing that that's the normal state, that the mind is only employed when it's referenced or needed. Yes.
Sorry, that's a huge thing in terms of not accepting, but silencing the mind, right? That is most of the spiritual sadhanas do it. And I think what I was saying before, and I think I'm going to say now, is accepting the mind is perhaps one of the two. Accepting, when you notice, and to accept what it is, what there is one way of stilling the mind. Or how would you suggest is in terms of stilling them?
Yeah. Well, what I would say is I have no idea. What the scriptures say is lose interest through discernment. Yes, except don't fight. All of this has to be done with non-resistance, right? So you see a noisy mind, you don't then step into the mind and try and quiet it. You simply say, yes, look at the noisy mind. So you accept it, but you don't identify with it. You accept, look at that, and you watch it, and you let it be what it is. But you watch it from a distance. You keep that separation. You keep that non-attachment. That's enough. That will still the mind. Become interested in the mind, and you're sunk. You're stuck. Be interested in what it's thinking about, and make the mistake of saying, I'm thinking about such and such. That's identity. Then you become very interested in it. And this ironically can become, is part of the danger of the path of knowledge. Bhakti yoga, the danger is fanaticism. In Jnana yoga, the danger is becoming a little bit too interested in the philosophy, in the study. And we start thinking about it, thinking that that's going to give us the answer, the change. But see, even in both bhakti and, of course, in all the paths, none of the things is the thing. Everything is pointing at an ideal. Everything's pointing. So the mind will quiet when you lose interest in it. And you lose interest when you remove the ideas of me and mine. It's my thought, it's my plan, it's my imagination, it's my hope, it's my dream. As soon as you realize that they're not yours, that they're no more yours than your neighbors are yours, their thoughts and their dreams and their hopes. And through that discernment is how we arrive at that. It's not that we hypnotize ourselves into a different way of thinking about it. It's that we pay attention to the reality of the experience of the moment, and we come to see that it has nothing to do with us. We come to witness the fact that the body-mind carry on just fine without me owning what they're up to. And it's through that awareness, through becoming aware of the reality, becoming aware of how things really are, that we begin to cancel out our wrong ideas of how we thought they were. And as those ideas get canceled out and we form our dispassion, then the mind grows less and less noisy, less and less noisy. And you see the absurdity of many of the things that you've run after or thought about that have kept you so busy.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. It is after 8, 9, or 10. Oh my gosh.